Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you all about the latest from Cabal, Drag Me Down, out April 3rd on Long Branch Records. This album has 10 tracks, 35 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. The boys from Denmark, a deathcore band from Denmark that perhaps has gone under the radar for a lot of people. I really believe that this album is going to open a lot of doors beyond the doors that perhaps would open into the fans of the genre. I really feel like this album is going to open doors beyond that, and it's going to allow this band to really take huge leaps forward and gain a much larger audience. To me, the reason for that is the approach that they took on the record as far as the sound is concerned. This is just not your typical deathcore album. This is just not your typical deathcore band. They really pull a lot of different influences into their sound, into the approach that they take when they create songs, into the album structure, into the dynamics of the record. You have songs where you feel influences from black metal, doom metal, gent, grooviness. There's a lot of grooviness within this record. So you have a lot of different elements that perhaps are foreigner to deathcore, to the genre itself, but that they're able to incorporate into their sound, creating a record that's very unique to them. When you listen to this album, you know who this band is, you know who they are, because it just has a very, like I said, a very unique flavor, a very unique fragrance to the way they create music. The album is very consistent all the way through. The structure of the album is very consistent all the way through, allowing the album to be very cohesive. Having said that, it's not an album that becomes repetitive. There are common elements throughout the album, perhaps intensity, aggression, and heaviness being the three main core elements that are predominant throughout every single song on the album, allowing the album to be cohesive, to have this very great fluidity. But then the changes in style or the changes in approach by including those different genres into their songs really allows the tracks to change ever so slightly, to change the feel, to change the momentum, to change the atmosphere, to change the flavor. And those small changes that happen on a track-by-track basis allow the album to be dynamic and fresh and not sound repetitive, but still have enough elements that are common throughout every single song that allows the album to have this forward motion and to feel very concise, very cohesive, and not really have peaks and valleys. This is an album that's turned to 11 from the beginning all the way down to the end. It's not an album that really offers you a dip here and there. Every single song has that intensity. Every single song has heaviness and aggression. It's just how it's presented to you is perhaps presented in a different fashion, track after track after track. The album has a few guest appearances. Perhaps the most noticeable one is Heafy from Trivium. I really like the fact that they included a few guest appearances. It adds a little bit of extra flavor. It's just another component to the record that adds a different sound, that adds a different feel. And to me, that's always a good thing. It really elevates the quality of the record. It elevates the sound of the record. And for a band that's releasing their second album, will also bring a different set of fans in due to those guest appearances. Specifically, when you talk about Heafy and the range that he has in terms of bringing a lot of new ears into this band. So I really applaud them for getting those guest appearances on the album, specifically Heafy, because I really feel like it will showcase their talent to a different audience that perhaps would walk by this album and not really pay any attention to it. The album on itself did not really need those guest appearances. It's rock solid on its own. The quality of the album is undeniable, but to me, when you add those, you add a little bit of a different flavor, and you also get a little bit more attention to your work. The vocals on the album are absolutely filled with brutality, and to me, they are the perfect conduit, the perfect partner, if you will, to the sound. Andreas, he has an incredible voice and an incredible delivery. So to me, when you have a sound that is this aggressive, that is this dynamic, that is this intense, you need somebody that will deliver the same sort of emotions, the same sort of range of feelings through their vocals. Andreas did that on this record. He really elevated every single track, changing ever so slightly his approach, changing ever so slightly his range in order to really elevate each track, and more importantly, give each track the intensity that it needed or the emotion that it needed. The guitars on this album are also another element that I have to mention because I really like what they've done with the guitars. The breakdowns are demolishing, the riffs are great, the overall sound is very brutal, not overly polished. It has a lot of the rawness that you get from their live performances. I've seen this band live, And I must tell you, the sound that you get in the live setting, the brutality that you get in the live setting, they are able to transmit that into the studio and then pass it on to the listener. You really feel that way when you listen to this album, because the guitars have such a groovy aspect to it, but they're heavy at the same time. And they're able to mix all the elements of a live performance or how you play your guitars live into the studio and make it work. This album is definitely a representation of the band live into the studio. Specifically, when you look from a guitar perspective, I really like all the work they did around creating really interesting dynamics, almost like weaving heaviness and melody together to create songs that have a lot of life built in within them. This is a great album. To me, this is an album that feels like you're in a cage with an MMA fighter and he's just pinning you down, putting you into a submission, and then knocking you out. It's just a relentless album from that perspective. I love it because it never takes the foot off the gas. This album is just absolutely relentless from top to bottom, and I like that. It has this youthfulness, aggression built into every single track, which makes the album, like I said, relentless. As far as songs are concerned, I want to start with Gift Givers. This is the opening track on the album, and to me, this is a song that immediately slaps you around and it grabs your attention. Perfect opening track. Really the track that you want to have at the beginning of the album, because once you listen to this song, you kind of get a feeling for what you're in. What kind of a ride this is going to be. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And it allows you to understand exactly what the band is trying to do with this record, with their sound. And it's also a song that really holds you down and pins you down through the rest of the album. So it's a perfect track to open up because it gets your attention. From that moment on, you're not going to put the album away and you're going to continue to listen to the record. So I really like this as the opening track. It has a lot of life in it. It's a track that has a lot of aggression, a lot of intensity. It really moves around a lot. It has powerful drums and guitars and diabolical vocals. This is a song that really merges these three different elements, drums, guitars, and vocals, which to me are the main three components of this record as far as the overall sound is concerned. But the ability that this track has to create this weaveness of heaviness and aggression, really knowing how to get these two worlds to combine together to create a very unique sound, merging them together, really allows this song and then the overall album to have this really magnetizing sound, this really robust wall of metal coming at you. Next, the Hangman song. I really like this one. This one is a lot groovier. It feels a lot groovier to me. The start of this song has this feeling of increasing in speed. They do it later on down the track. It feels like the volume is increasing towards you, almost like a danger approaching. I really like that. I like the tempo that the song has. I like the sound that it carries, and I like that movement of sound. It works really well. They do it at the beginning of the track, and they do it later down the track. It's something that, in my opinion, really changes the dynamics, and it changes your perspective of the song. There's a lot of djent elements into the guitar, a lot of grooviness into the guitar sound on this track, and some slower moments, it becomes brutal. It changes from this melodic djent approach to a more brutal approach. It almost feels like the slower the song goes, the more heavy and the more brutal it becomes. The vocals add great dynamic to the track. They really bring the lyrics to life, and they really bring the song to life, and they really allow the song to change directions. And this one is not as much the sound that allows the song to change directions, it's more the vocals that determine the direction that the song takes. There's a breakdown in this song that absolutely feels like a sledgehammer to your head, just heavy and brutal, and that is a trademark of this band, and that is a trademark of the sound on the record. Last but not least, Unbound, groovier track. It has a great fluidity to it, and also with some djent elements mixed in, but it never compromises on the heaviness. This is a song that, regardless of how groovy, how melodic it goes, it never takes away the heaviness that the track has built into it. It really allows these elements to coexist in perfect harmony throughout the track, creating a very heavy and groovy track, combining these elements, combining these two different worlds to really propel you forward. Even the vocal approach on this track really changes, really gives you a little bit of a different look, a different feel, and that to me, it coexists with the change, with the dynamic changes that the song has musically. So they're really able to work out exactly the right approach, the right style vocally in order to get the most out of the music that's on any given track, specifically in Unbound. I really feel the combination, the efforts between the vocals and sound and guitars really are working on a partnership. One is not trying to outdo the other. They're both trying to get the most out of each other, and that's really present on this song. Alright guys, this is it. This is Cabal with Drag Me Down, out April 3rd on Long Branch Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those as always and getting back to you. Take care, guys.